Long ago, in the small village of Anuwa, there lived a man named Akachi. Akachi was a hard-working farmer who owned many fields of yams and vegetables. Though he worked from sunrise to sunset, Akachi was not a happy man. His one great sadness was that he had no children to carry on his family's name. A man without children is like a tree that bears no fruit, he would say with a heavy sigh. One day, Akachi's friend Chika came to his hut with wonderful news. "Akachi, I've found the perfect wife for you," Chika exclaimed. "Her name is Nneka, and she is known throughout the village for her beauty, kind heart, and skills at cooking and keeping a tidy home." Akachi's face lit up with joy. He trusted Chika completely. "This is wonderful news," Akachi said, clapping his hands. "Please tell me more about this Nneka." "She comes from a large family with many brothers and sisters," Chika explained. "Surely she will be able to give you many children to make your home full of laughter." Akachi smiled and nodded eagerly. He could already picture the pitter-patter of little feet inside his hut. After speaking to Nneka's family and receiving their blessing, Akachi and Nneka were married in a joyous ceremony. Nneka was just as kind and beautiful as Chika described. Akachi worked hard on his farm while Nneka kept their home tidy, and her stew pots bubbling with delicious food. 1 year after their wedding, Nneka's belly began to swell with child. Akachi could barely contain his excitement at the thought of becoming a father. When the time came, Nneka gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. "She has your smile," Nneka cooed as she held the tiny bundle. Akachi was overjoyed to finally be a father, but worried that without a son, he would have no heir to inherit his lands and continue his family's legacy. Still, he loved his new daughter more than anything. Over the next few years, Nneka gave birth to 3 more daughters. Akachi showered his 4 girls with love and affection, but he could not ignore the nagging feeling that he needed a son. "4 daughters is more than I could have ever dreamed," he told Nneka. "But you know how important it is to me to have a son to carry on my family's name." With a somber nod, Nneka understood. In their village, it was seen as a disgrace for a man to not have a son. Nneka feared her husband would take another wife in order to have a male heir. Sure enough, a few months later, Akachi came home with a second wife named Kazara. She was several years younger than Nneka, with smooth brown skin and gentle eyes. Though Nneka had been dreading this day, she knew she must accept her husband's decision. At first, Kazara was polite and helped around the home however she could, but it didn't take long for her true nature to reveal itself as cruel and envious. She would pinch Nneka's daughters when no one was looking and call them horrible names. "You 4 are nothing but thorns in my side," Kazara would hiss, "and your mother is a disgraceful woman for not giving your father any sons." The young girls started coming to their mother in tears after being tormented by Kazara's vicious words and pinches. Nneka knew she had to put an end to Kazara's cruelty for the sake of her daughters. One night, after her daughters were asleep, Nneka confronted Kazara outside their hut. "Why are you so filled with hate towards my children and me?" Nneka asked. "What have we done to deserve your cruelty?" Kazara scowled and pointed an accusing finger at Nneka. "It should be me having sons with Akachi, not you," she spat. "I will become his true wife, and you will be cast out like the disgrace you are." With those venomous words, Kazara raised her hand to strike Nneka. But just then, Akachi came home from working late in his fields and saw the confrontation. "What is going on here?" he demanded. After hearing both wives' explanations, Akachi's face turned bright red with anger. "Kazara, your cruelty towards my family is unforgivable," he said. "You are the disgrace, not Nneka and my daughters. I will not have you in my home a moment longer." Kazara was sent away in disgrace. For a while there was peace and happiness again in Akachi's home with Nneka and their 4 daughters, but the desire for a son still burned inside Akachi. A couple of years later, Akachi returned home one evening with a 3rd wife named Ezine. She was a striking woman with long braids and a curved figure. Nneka dreaded having to share her home once more, but welcomed Ezine with an open heart, hoping she would not be as cruel as Kazara. Before long, Nneka's worst fears came true. Ezine was even more wicked and envious than Kazara had been. She would often neglect the chores Akachi gave her, and instead lay about mocking Nneka's daughters and calling them harsh names. "You little worthless girls will never become wives," Ezine would taunt. No man wants a family of all daughters. When Nneka confronted Azina, she received the same vile response as before from Kasara, threats of violence and being cast out of her own home. Nneka took her daughters and left for her sister's hut, afraid for their safety from the unstable Azine. At her sister's home, there was peace for a short while. But Nneka felt incomplete without her husband and longed for his presence, despite his cruelties. One day, Nneka's sister rushed in with devastating news. Akachi had fallen deathly ill after a tragic farming accident. Nneka gathered her daughters and rushed to Akachi's hut, worried she may never see her husband alive again. When she arrived, she was relieved to find Akachi alive, but struggling for his life. Azine sat smugly beside him with her arms crossed, not even caring for her husband's health. Over the next few days, Nneka stayed by Akachi's side, gently bathing his face with cool water and reading him peaceful verses as he slipped in and out of consciousness. Azine did not lift a finger to help, except to make snide remarks about Akachi finally being free of his burden of daughters. One warm night, Akachi opened his eyes and looked at Nneka with a weak smile. "My love, I am afraid I don't have much longer," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please, ... bring me my daughters." Nneka fetched their 4 girls, and they all gathered around Akachi's bed, holding his frail hands as tears streamed down their faces. Even Azina fell silent, perhaps just now realizing the tragedy about to occur. Using the last of his energy, Akachi gripped his daughters' small hands tightly and looked at each of them in turn. "My beautiful daughters, I'm so sorry I made you share a home with such cruelty for the sake of my selfishness," he said, his eyes glistening with tears. "A family's love should be unconditional, whether they have sons or daughters. Please, forgive your foolish father." The 4 young girls leaned in and kissed Akachi's cheeks as the heartbroken Nneka held his head in her lap. With a few final wheezing breaths, Akachi was gone. After Akachi's passing and the mourning period, the unthinkable happened. Akachi's will was read aloud and he had left every single possession to Azina, including his home and fields. Nneka and her 4 daughters were left with nothing, having to move in with Nneka's sister and rely on her mercy to survive. As for Azina, she had shockingly given birth to a son only a couple months after Akachi's death. It was plain to see that this son was not Akachi's child, but the result of her deceit with another man. Though Azine was now wealthy through Akachi's will, she had not earned any of it through goodness or hard work. The village saw her for the liar and trickster she truly was. Whenever Azine passed by, people would shake their heads in disgust and look away. To make matters worse, Kasara had returned to the village, fuming with jealous rage that Azine was given everything she felt she deserved as Akachi's wife. Kasara made it her mission to torment Azine and her illegitimate son at every turn through nasty rumours and harmless but annoying pranks. As for Nneka, she and her 4 daughters stayed in their small living quarters at her sister's home, getting by through hard work and perseverance, just as Nneka had done her entire life. Though they no longer had wealth or social status, Nneka made sure her daughters grew up valued, respected, and most of all, loved unconditionally. Years later, when Nneka was an elderly woman, her daughters had grown into strong, caring young women themselves, each with children of their own, both sons and daughters. Not a day went by when they didn't express their eternal gratitude to their mother for raising them right and shielding them from the cruelties of their father's multiple wives.